Okay.
And I'm festive. I love Christmas. It's my favorite time of the year, and that comes from being an elementary principal for like 5 or 6 years. And usually I have on my Christmas tie. So we'll go ahead and get started. I won't take much of your time, but I do want to spend a couple of things. Share. All right. All right, I'm looking at Blackboard, and I'm going to bring us up to where we are in class. So basically, we are 1 week away from the end. Hey, Krista, how are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm well. You're done, too. Everybody here is done.
Yay.
Hey. Good deal. All right, so we are on week 14, which means we are 1 week away. Tonight, we're going to talk about how the principal can be a change agent. Next Thursday, if you join me, which I hope you will, we're going to talk about what next. Now that you are a certifiable, ready to become the principal or the assistant principal, I'm not going to talk about necessarily what to do during the interview, because I think you'll see in class session 15 that there's a lot of information about that. But I want to kind of talk to you through about what next and what you should do next in your career. So that's kind of what I'm going to do on the 15th. But tonight, I want to show you a couple of things I've added to your task stream.
What is that, Tam?
Or to your Blackboard. The first one is this cute little story, a Christmas story of the public schools. If you get a chance to read that, it's really a great little story. The next one is more for North Carolina teachers, but I would assume that if you are in South Carolina on the border of County, North Carolina's got this really neat site where there's some business tools for North Carolina teachers, and I'm sure South Carolina has the same, and I'll try to look for that next week. But it's an online tool that if you want to have someone come in to speak to your class, or you want to have something that the business community can help you with, it's a great little tool for you to use, and one that's available to you. So I encourage you to use that. Dr. Stedman is not with us tonight. His wife took ill today, and I know he had to take her to the emergency room, and I think everything's fine. I think she's back home. But I know Danny would want to send his regrets that he's not here and let you all know that he was certainly thinking about you. And if you'll think about him and his family, I know he would appreciate it. I don't know exactly what was wrong with his wife, but I do know from what I heard just a few minutes ago that she is home and things seems to be pretty good. So I know that kind of scares Danny. So keep him in your prayers. Also, before I talk about our topic tonight, I want to remind you that the task stream, if anyone is listening, and I'm looking at the pictures of who's here, and I don't think any of you have anything that's due. Task stream is going to close tonight for those folks who haven't done it. We still have 2 in the class. The grades. If you have not completed all of the assignments yet, you will get another email from me either today or tomorrow or tonight, telling you what I'm missing. And what I'm trying to get you to do is to that maximum score. But remember, a 90% is an A. So if you just absolutely can't do that last assignment, don't worry about it. If you just can't be and you're pushed. But you got to get that 90%. So I have already entered some grades of those of you who've already made 100 or made an A. But I want to encourage you, and there's only like 6 or 7 folks in the class who really haven't gotten to that A level yet. So if you get an email from me, I'm really trying to push you even more so we can clear it up. The last day for grades is next Wednesday. Next Wednesday, the 12th, is the last day for grades. I promise you, I check task stream and Blackboard almost every 2 hours. So if you put something in there, all fine and good. If you do not get an email from me tonight or tomorrow, it means you're all set.
Some of the names they pulled.
I'm only going to email those folks who are not quite where they need to be yet. All right, there's two.
Did Barbara even buy something? No. She don't know about none of that shit.
Somebody needs to mute. Got it? All right, thank you. So there's a couple of, there are 2 of you in the class who are not quite yet finished with task stream. Please get on that tonight. It's your final competency, and it's also your log. And I know those are not fun things to do, but it really does make a difference in task stream. So that's where I need you to be. And no chats. All right, so let's talk about the change. And I will, all right, when you become, and you have 1 more class away from being named the assistant principal or the principal, I hope, of a school in your county or county next to you. So the biggest responsibility of a school administrator, whether you're the principal or the assistant principal, is helping to manage the culture of that school. So when you get that first job, now if you get a job as an assistant principal, you really are going to have to take the lead of your principal. Let me repeat that, because that's something really important, and I've seen this not work well. When you get a gung-ho assistant principal, like all of you are going to be, if you go assistant principal, some of you may skip over to the principal's level, or who knows where you may go. But if you are assigned as an assistant principal, one of the first things you need to do is to really get in sync with your principal. Now, that's going to be uncomfortable for you, because chances are you may go to a school where the principal is lazy. You may go to a school where the principal is really hurting the culture. But your job as the assistant principal at the beginning, now that's the key, at the beginning, is to make sure that you are sending a common message. Once you've been there for a month or so and you see that it is horrible, at that point you need to start having conversations with the principal about, let me do this, because that's going to catch the attention of the central office, because they know what kind of principal you're working with. Trust me, there are no principals out there that the superintendent or someone in the education center or someone in the central office doesn't already know what kind of principal they are. So they know when they send you to that school, they are probably trying to give you a chance to help change the culture. So for the first month, get in sync with your principal. Get in sync with him or her. After that, instead of coming up and saying, I don't like the way you do this, or I don't like the way you do that, offer to take charge of those. I know you're busy. Can I take charge of the school improvement team? Can I take charge of the PLCs? Can I take charge of exceptional children? I will almost guarantee you 100% that that's going to catch the attention of the folks who you want to catch the attention to, because they're going to be watching you, and they're going to be making future job decisions based on how you react. And if as an assistant principal, you're going to work for some of the best and some of the worst, and you can learn from both of them. From the best, you can learn of the things that I want to do when I finally get my school, and from the worst, you learn what I don't want to do. But one of the things that you're going to do after that month one is begin to look at how you can impact the culture of your school. And that's what's going to really get the attention of the folks downtown. What you are doing in that school to impact the culture. That involves the school improvement team. That involves a lot of things. So I'm going to walk through this real quick, because I want to do some discussion here at the end, because I did send you an email asking you to help me fill in 4 sheets. So that's really what I want to talk about. But anyway, your mission when you become the assistant principal or the principal is to create a culture of change. It's not easy. It's not going to be fun. Well, it will be fun, but it's not easy, but it is necessary, because that if you're standing still, you're falling behind. And so you're constantly trying to tweak the culture of your school. You cannot go in and even if it's a great culture, it needs to be tweaked so it can continue to be a great culture. All right. Yep. So there are 4 elements to changing your school, defining. This is what you need to do, again, when you're an assistant principal to principal. When you're going in to change the culture of that school, the first thing you've got to do is you've got to realize that whenever there's a new administrator, there's stress. There is stress at your school by the teachers and others who are worried about what this person's going to do. And if you're following behind someone as an assistant principal, or even as the principal, they have already established they've already established themselves. Let me get out of this screen so you can see everything. Yeah, all right. I don't know how to move it over, but so the first thing you need to do is to reassure them that you are not there to change all the traditions. You are not going to tear down that strong athletic program they have. That's not your goal. You're not going to reinvent the arts program. So the first thing you need to do is to let them know what you're going to preserve, because they don't want to have a principal coming in or an assistant principal who's also gung-ho, that all you're going to do with your guns blazing is to change everything. So the first step is to reassure. Make small changes. Make changes that they can see that you believe in, as well as they can begin to believe in as well. Also, those traditions they have in that school, try to build around them. Like if you have a book, if you walk into your school and the first thing you see is the athletic case there with all the football trophies or the basketball trophies or track, golf, there's no reason to say we're going to get rid of that because our school was not about athletics. That's a tradition. That's a tradition that really brings people into your school. It makes kids proud. But what you can do is have gradual changes where perhaps there's the band trophy, or perhaps there's the student's trophy who won the spelling bee, or I'm trying to think of things that students would have it in there, but some other kinds of trophies for the academic program as well. So kind of make that, not trying to incorporate that tradition and make it more inclusive. So that's one thing. So you got to tell them what you're not going to do. You got to also recognize the importance of your actions, your personal actions, your time, and your relationships. So encourage people to come to you, encourage them to listen to you, and to, oh, I didn't do that right. All right, I'm playing with this, so you all bear with me. All right, so encourage people to be a part of that cultural change. The third step is to make sure you're using the right tools, build on those traditions, avoid power tools such as threats and coercion because they don't really work. The management, unless, well, they do sometimes, but they're not the most effective tools to use. And role modeling, that's the most important one. The third cultural change is for them to see you doing it. There's nothing like seeing a principal stopping in the hall and picking up trash. Have you ever seen your principal do that? They just shake your head up and down. That would be the appropriate answer. Hopefully you've seen that where the principal, the assistant principal, they see something on the ground, rather than calling the custodian to come over to do it, they do it themselves, because that's kind of what they're proud of their school. So part of the fourth one of that cultural change is they have to know that you're in it, and they have to know that you're not using this as a stepping stone. This is not to make you look good, that you really truly do believe in the culture. You've got to be willing to get in the trenches and do the dirty work. So those are the components of a cultural change. Now, they're going to be looking at you, and so you got to have certain characteristics as that leader to help them see that in you and for them to be successful. The first is moral courage or moral purpose. They've got to see your commitment to it. They've got to know that you have a moral obligation, a moral belief about closing the achievement gap, because that's really what schools are all about. It's about that achievement gap. It's about performance. It's about making sure that our kids are successful. So it's got to really be about how you really do believe that all kids can learn. Have you heard your principal say that? All kids can learn? Do you think in your mind, is it believable? Sometimes, and I'm not asking you to nod your heads because I may not want to know, but a really good principal is someone who really, you can just see it. They really do believe it. And they really want you to believe that. And they want you to buy into that. So that's a part of that moral purpose. They're going to look to you as the person who's going to lead them because you have moral authority to do so. Now, the other piece to that, which is quite interesting, and this is the hardest one, I think, for most principals, but when you begin, if you ever in your career, when you get there and work for the district, you'll know what I'm talking about. But it's not just good enough to want the best for your school and to close the gap at your school. You've got to want it for the district, because the weakest link in your district is the weakest school. And so not only should you try to be improving your school, but you should also be working on the district as well. Understanding change, you've got to make sure your staff understands that it's not bad, it's not easy, but it is something that you have to do. Also, they have to understand that it's not something that's going to happen overnight. They're going to have to also understand that an understanding change, that you're going to be there with them and you believe in them. All right. The relationship piece, I can't say enough. Wherever you go, whatever job you do, it's all about improving those relationships and having the kinds of relationships that you want to have with your staff. So it's all about improving relationships. And again, the biggest part of that relationship is finding out things about your staff, being sincerely interested in your staff, and helping them to develop and to utilize you as a go-to person. Now, you don't want to become necessarily best friends with your staff, but you do want them to feel comfortable to come in and tell you about what's impacting their life, what's impacting their work. So building relationships or improving relationships. The fourth is you have to be knowledgeable, and you have to use that knowledge in a way that shares it with others to make sure that other people have a chance to share. So that's where your PLCs come in place. That's where you begin when they look toward you, they look to see how much are you going to let them know? How much are you going to give them knowledge? because knowledge, of course, is power. And the fifth one, they got to know that you really are wanting to make coherence, that you really are trying to find a central theme in that school. You've got a central thing that you're working on, and every single thing you do is related to that. And in education, what should it be? Educating kids, making sure our kids are successful. So we also understand that we're going to have pushback from different places, and sometimes we welcome that because it helps us get to the final place where we need to do. I'm getting to those school improvement plans and those teams, so I'm getting there shortly. The other components of being that new principal or that new assistant principal is to making sure that you have a sustainability plan, because you've all seen those charismatic principals. You've seen those people who come in and come out, and they come in, they create a wonderful place. They're gone in 3 years to the next good job, the next big job, the higher paying job, and then the culture of the school kind of flounders. That's a culture of personality, and that's not sustainability. So as a leader, you're going to be that charismatic leader. I know that, every one of you. But I hope you go beyond the charisma, because the charisma is a facade. It really, in most cases, is. If you're not putting together something that's going to sustain this school when you move to your next level, and all of you are ambitious folks, and so you're not going to be satisfied at this first entry place you go in administration. You're going to want the next in a couple of years, and the next, I hope. So, but a great leader makes sure that you have in place something that will sustain the culture of the school. It is no good if that culture is all about you, or that culture is all wrapped up in you. When you leave, that school falls down again. So the best leader is the one that can do the sustainability. And there are 4 things to help with this, is to develop that social environment where you do have that teamsmanship, where you have everybody connecting to the goals and the mission of the school. So it's not just me driving it, it's everybody in the school. It's reaching out to those naysayers, is reaching out to those marginal people, is trying to pull everyone into that social environment. Also, learning in text is another skill that you're going to need, and that is to helping people learn where they work or where they are. So making the learning and making the everything in context to your work environment. Folks will appreciate that and will benefit from that. Cultivating leaders. As a principal or an assistant principal, you are always wanting to be looking out for the leadership in that school. Who are the real leaders? Who are the silent leaders? Who are the ones who always step forward? And as an administrator, a part of your job is not just to make sure the curriculum's being taught, the school is being opened and managed, but you should also be beginning to look in the school of who's that future leader that's going to rise up. And it's not always the people in the doctoral programs or the master's programs. It's oftentimes that person who has a real passion, who not only shares your vision or your passion for the school, but just shares a passion for that school in general. So a part of what they're looking for in sustainability is your ability to reach out into that school and to identify leaders. If you don't find them, then your job is to develop them. Your job is to find that person and say, you're going to do this for the school because I've noticed that this is something that you love to do. So not only just finding them, but you also have to cultivate them. And you also have to work toward, and sincerely work toward, enhancing the teaching profession. We can't have enough great principals if we don't have enough great teachers. So whatever we can do as an assistant principal or principal it's always got to be geared toward helping them be successful. You're going to find as an assistant principal, your main job or your principal job is to break down barriers, is to take care of things so teachers don't have to do it. You will be beloved if you come in with a structure that helps them get more things off their plate. Now, there are some things that they can't get off their plate, and you're going to have to constantly help them with that. But there are so many things you can. I mean, there's so many things that you as the principal or assistant principal is going to have power over that you can help to enhance them. And sometimes it's getting things off their plate. Sometimes it's helping them find the right resources. Sometimes it's just simply being that person that they need to kind of give them that refresher course or to give them that kind of boost, because all of us get tired in our job at some point. All of us feel down. All of us have an opportunity to reinvent ourselves. And as a sustaining principal, that's part of the things that you're going to do. All right, so we talked about what next, what you need to do, some of the characteristics you have, and then once you're named, some of the ways in which you're going to have a positive impact on that culture. Now, I mentioned this to everybody at the very beginning, but next week, if you join me, and I'm not quite done tonight, but next week, if you join me, I'm going to talk about what next and some real practical advice about what now that you've gotten your add-on license from Gardner-Webb University, some real practical experience about what to do with it. But before I do that, the last part of this is how to have the best school improvement team in your building. Now, I would almost guarantee you of the 14 folks who are in this class, my colleagues who are in this class with me, I would say well over 70% of you are on your school improvement team. I may be wrong. And if you're not on it now, you have been on it in the past. The school improvement team is the perfect place for you as the assistant principal or principal to begin to develop some of those leadership skills. It's a perfect place for you to begin to see the talent that other people can bring to the table so they can be a part of that sustainability. Because again, if you're a phenomenal principal and when you do great things for your school and you move away to your next job in 3 years and your school that you left goes down, you really haven't done a great job. So the school improvement team is the best place to find those people who's going to help sustain after you're gone. So school improvement teams are required by law in North Carolina. I don't know for sure, but I'm pretty sure they're required by law in South Carolina. Yes, they are. I remember reading that. And part of the provisions about the school improvement team are that there has to be parent representation. You have to try to reach a broad category of folks as possible. One of the things that I've always requested of my principals is to go out and to make sure that if you're having difficulty getting a Hispanic parent on your committee and 13% of your population is Hispanic, you've got to go out and recruit. Don't wait for them to volunteer. Same way if it's a predominantly white school and you have 12, 13% African American, you've got to have a good representation on your committee. If you're in a predominantly African American school and you have trouble getting white parents on this team, what I'm saying is you've got to have, if 13% of your students are African American, by God, you better have an African American parent, not staff member, parent on your school improvement team. They need, and it may not be the person that's going to stand in line and wave at you and tell you, I want to do it. You're going to have to go out and recruit. And when it comes to who's in your school, you've got to have some of your teachers across the grade levels. You also have to have, of course, some of your teacher assistants or other classified folks. You should also be looking there for, you should never appoint them. They should always be elected, or they should always be people who step up and volunteer, and there should be an election process in North Carolina. It's required. But your school improvement team needs to be inclusive as well. So make sure you don't have the same old people always on your school improvement team. When you get into a building, try to reach out, encourage people to be on your school improvement team. They also are important to help you in your leadership role. Now, I sent you out an email asking you to help me fill in these last 2 blanks, or these last 4 slides. And the first one is to get an understanding of school improvement teams. And as I said, most of you probably have already been on a school improvement team, or already on one, but some may not. As an administrator, you are going to have a school improvement team based by law. How well you use it is going to be based on your leadership skill. School improvement teams can run away too. They can get completely out of control. I had an elementary school in Caldwell County where the PTA was telling the principal what to do, or the parent on the improvement team was telling the principal what she needed to do. And you're going to have those dominant type of people, particularly in elementary and middle. So what does your school improvement leadership team do? Someone. Come on.
Well, they identify the strengths and the weaknesses of the school, possible opportunities, and even the possible barriers. So when it comes to making the change process, determine what's working and not working.
Are you on your, Ms. Bradley, are you on your school improvement team?
I was last year, not this year.
Okay, I figured you had been. All right, anybody else? Some of the other things that you've had an experience or you think the school improvement team gets to do?
I agree with Ms. Bradley and what she said. I also think that they work to provide like strong improvements to the school and help with the school renewal and that process as well.
That's good. I hadn't thought about school renewal, but that's an important component. Anyone else? Do you have an idea what your school improvement team does? Anybody else on the team? One of your school's teams? What do you do other than meet once a month?
I might be thinking of the ILT, but I don't know. They do walkthroughs. I'm not sure if that's the same as SLT. Like they have learning walks and walkthroughs, but that might be ILT.
That's your ILT. That's a part of their responsibility is to make sure, you know, that those kinds of things, because your school improvement team should avoid any kind of looks like it's an evaluator. Yeah, it should not do that at all. That's a terrible place to make your school improvement team. Anybody else serve on a school improvement team?
I serve on a school improvement team. I'm in the hair salon. I'm sorry.
What do y'all do?
But basically, just spearhead a lot of the projects in the school. Just spearhead and collaborate and talk about ways to improve the school from the different standpoints. When you have a school improvement team, it's inclusive of, well, it's supposed to be inclusive of what the student body looks like in the community, but a lot of times it doesn't.
No.
So everybody says the same thing.
Do you get to play with money?
We're supposed to, but there's really no real power.
Okay. Here's a consider it a freebie piece of information that you will not get anywhere else. And I can tell you this. As a principal or an assistant principal, you're not going to get a lot of money anyway. You probably already know that. And what money you get from the central office, it's going to be your drink machine money. You're not getting much at all because there's not a lot to go around. And most of the money that comes into schools are by category. So you may have some Title I money that you can play with and all, but that's one of the things too. When people interview you for your principalship or assistant principal and they ask you if you have any budget experience, don't worry about it. I mean, there's not a whole lot of budgeting you can do with $1,000.
And then the district office has already made decisions on a good portion of the money. Yep. Now, local money, we got a little bit of leeway, but like you said, it's departmentalized. And so departments are kind of saying we doing what we want to do with our money. So.
Yep. All right. Anyone else before we move to the next slide? Very good. All right. Now, let's talk about who should be on that team. And we talked a little bit about it. Who?
Well, your team should be diverse. You said earlier that it should be a representation of your community and your school. You want to include your teachers, some of your teachers, and that should be done by election process. You also want to, in our district, we try to also include community stakeholders such as business owners also, because they play a vital role also.
Okay. Anyone else? What about students? Any of you in the high school? Are there any students on your school improvement plan?
I teach in middle school, and we have students on our school improvement team and community stakeholders too.
Awesome. That is awesome. I didn't know middle schools did that, but that's super.
Yes.
Anyone else have students on your Anyone else have students on your school improvement team?
We have students on ours. I'm in a high school.
Okay, they should. What about anybody have the custodian? Do you have folks like the custodian, cafeteria ladies, or?
We do have our custodian on our school improvement council team.
You know what? That's a very, very good move, because that man or woman knows more about that school and the operation and the management of that school than the principal does. So that's a very, very good, because that person can tell you so much about the school. Same way for the school secretary, although I would caution you a little bit about the school secretary, because that is a very, very powerful position. And the most schools that I've ever been in, because the school secretary has so much power, we try not to put them on the school improvement team for that reason. And that may have been just me. So consider that. If you have your secretary, a good, strong secretary, go ahead and put her on the school improvement team. My experience has been the other folks are scared of her. All right. Do they need to know about the change process? Your school improvement team? About what, I mean, and by change process, I mean what it takes to move from A to B.
Absolutely.
Oh, I agree. And the reason why, and I'll answer this if anybody else wants to answer too, is because if someone that's on the school improvement team thinks it's only about how to spend that $1,000 of Title I money on this program or that program, that is not change. That's just maintenance. That's just maintenance. So what you really want for someone on that team is someone who's got great ideas and someone who is not afraid to throw something on the table or say, have we thought about doing this a little bit differently? So the change process, the school improvement team's job is really two functions. One is for that little fun maintenance stuff, but the other really should be about driving change. It's taking and looking at that data, looking at the reports that come out and say, "Ooh, we're not quite so good in third grade. What can we do differently?" Those are the kinds of discussions that should be going on, not only in the PLC, but also in the school improvement team. All right. Anybody else want to add anything? All right. What makes a team effective? I'll answer this one for you, and you can add to it. I think when you have one of the first things you need to do with your school improvement team when you get there is to make sure that you know who they are and what they bring to the table. It is also important, too, that you have a full understanding of a full understanding of any kind of agendas that they can bring. I've discovered, and this may not be true for the rest of you, but I've discovered that an AIG teacher has an agenda. Oftentimes a very easy agenda to identify. Love AIG teachers. Many of you are AIG teachers. Love AIG teachers. But when they come to the table to discuss something, it generally, same way for Title I teachers, or special education teachers, because they're so focused on one particular area, they sometimes need to be told need to have a broader perspective. You do want them on your team, but you also want them to be able to look at the broader picture that the school is more than just their program. Same way for other programs as well. All right. That is it for me tonight as far as coursework goes. I do want a couple of other reminders for you. Great tool here for North Carolina teachers if you join me late. Great little story here. Next week, we are going to, please join me. I know it's your last week, and most of you are already done who are viewing with me tonight. But these first couple of things are things that Dr. Lamb went over you about how to interview for your first job, things you should say and do. I did include down here, and you're going to see another one of these tonight before I leave you, and that is this principal. Can't think of his names right off hands, but you'll recognize him. If you ever need a little something to get your team building, to get your class going, or to get your team working, these are really cute little funny videos. Also, I think everyone who is here with me tonight has already completed everything that had to do with the coursework. But I will be shooting you an email for those who do not have everything in the coursework or task stream. I'll be shooting you an email tonight. So if you do not get one, that means clap your hands, you're done. I've actually already entered your grade into the grade center. I don't know if you can see it or not, but the university requests that we send it to them as soon as we have it. So if you've already made that, which I think 8 of you have, if you've already gotten to that point where you've earned that A, I've already gone ahead and given the A. If you're not quite there yet, you'll get an email from me tonight saying this is what we need. But again, I'm trying to get you to complete all of the assignments. But remember, it's 90% is an A, 80% is a B. I am not giving anything below a B, so don't even try it. I'm going to hound you to death until you get me at least to a B. So, but I think most of you here have already got to that point. So if you get an email from me, that means I'm missing a few things. If you do not get an email, congratulations, you are done. I do hope you'll join me next week when we talk about what now? Now that you've got your degree, now that you've got our add-on license, what do you need to do next to get that job? Because that's what every one of you, I want to hear and read about the 8 of you getting the next fabulous job. All right. The deadline for classwork is Wednesday next week, which is December the 12th. I have to send in all my grades by then. So if you get the email from me, realize that is something that's coming up that we need to do. All right, let me show you this. And again, I am We're done for the night. Anybody have any questions? Is there any chats? I have gotten y'all out of using chat, haven't I? Anything you want to ask me or anything? Because I want to show you this real funny little video, and then we're done, and I will see you back next week. Anything for me before I go to my short little funny video?
Dr. Stone, I just had a question. One of my colleagues is in the other cohort, and they had to do a final reflection for Dr. Lamb, and she said it was in like her class week discussion post, but I can't find it anywhere. Was it just that cohort that had to do it?
No. Ms. Pickett, you had to do. You've done yours because I've read yours. Anybody else do one? Where is it? Because I don't see your Blackboard. Does anybody know?
Dr. Stedman had sent me and Alfine a copy of it because it was nowhere in our stuff.
Okay. I'll
Okay.
email him then.
All right.
Or Dr. Lamb, one of them. I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't like missing something because she said they had to do it for a grade, and I just wanted to make sure I got everything done.
I don't think it was for a grade. but
It's
we-
not for grade because
Okay.
I'm the only one that gives grades in the course. But I know the university likes to use them, so
Okay.
I will email Danny tonight and ask him if he'll send the email to everyone.
Okay, thank
And
you.
It's the final reflections.
Okay, thank you.
And I think it's just a way to say this is what it's kind of feedback for us. Also, you're going to be getting from the university we call them the SOIs for the student opinions. So when you get those, feel free to go ahead and be honest because that's the kind of stuff we use to try to build the program to make it stronger. All right. Anyone else? This man is so funny, but if you have to go, go ahead. But when he's over, we're going to end. But he is so funny. I cannot think of his name. I've seen it a million times.
I'm very excited about a new Christmas craft that I've created
Yeah.
to be able to get into vacation with your friends. It's called the Christmas Vacation Countdown. It's like an advent calendar. I've just taken cocktail cards and I've hot linked it together. I put some Christmas ribbon around it with some jingle bells. Little special prizes in each one of the milk cards and tied up with a ribbon on this right here. And then the 5 days. Right? I can open one and have a special trigger. So I'm going to show you what's in for mine. So right here, this one on Monday, I'm going to be able to pull out. I got some sparkly socks. Let's look at the top. So make sure I'm picking up the green. Here I got this on my bag of
Oh, look at this.
No.
This is a pirate eye patch. I like to wear this. So I got the 5% and you're still have this. It's really good. This is really good too. I'm covering to the Dollar Tree. This is a lot of it was just very, very festive for Christmas. I put some little smokies right here because I love little smokies. I can walk around on my ankles and I can get some little smokies.
Vienna sausages, I think.
10 days out of 5, some special treats in there, and then we'll get down and have a good Christmas.
All right. All right, everyone. Have a great evening. Have a great rest of the week, great weekend. Pray for no snow for us in North Carolina. And we'll see you back next week.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Dr. Stone,
Yes.
did you start recording? I have a question, but it's not related to class. Well, it's kind of related to class.
Okay. Let me cut out the recorder and
Me too.
okay.
Alfine and I have a Christmas dinner with our principal next Thursday night. And so I would really like to go. I don't want to miss class.
No. You go. You go. I will tape it and just, it'll be practical advice about what to do next. So you go, enjoy yourself. I will miss your smiling faces because y'all always are smiling. And I will maybe see you on the 15th. But no, just go ahead. And if you want to watch it later on, I mean, you guys have done straight A kind of work, so I wouldn't worry about it at all. Enjoy your Christmas.
All right. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're more than welcome. We'll
All
see
right.
you. Maybe
We
we'll
look forward to,
maybe we'll see you on the
we look
15th.
forward- yes. Look forward to meeting you.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.